Hey everybody, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving weekend break and you guys are ready to finish up this semester. We only have a few weeks left. So today it's mainly just about marketing, a few rules in marketing or like the not the set in stone rules, but just kind of like the rules that are rules of thumb. So we'll talk about those and then talk about what's coming up for the last few meetings before we're done with the semester. Hey V, hey Vish, how you guys doing? Hope you guys had a good vacation week, Thanksgiving as well. The first thing we're talking about today is the 90-10 marketing rule. This stuff comes from inc.com, it's letter A in the syllabus, right there. All right, so the 90-10 marketing rule is to spend 90% of your marketing efforts doing something remarkably well and 10% experimenting. So if you make great videos, if you're like really good at video marketing, you make really good video content and you're able to market it very well, but you're not as good at making blogs or posts with a lot of text or just, photos and whatever else, you want to spend, according to this rule, you want to spend 90% of your time and efforts making the best marketing videos you can, and then 10% experimenting, trying to do other things. I've also heard this in another way of it being 90% of the kind of content that you're good at making, which could be just any kind of the message could be the 90%. It could be like through text, through photos, through videos. Your main thing is about independent films. And that's 90% of what your marketing is. Your efforts go towards that, while 10% goes to a little bit more experimental stuff of web series and something like that that's a little bit more niche or a little bit different from what you averagely do, but that's just you experimenting to see if that works, but you're still spending 90% of your efforts on the thing you can do, or the thing that you're most well known for. So you could take that either way. If you're really good at making posts and you're not really that great at doing videos or photos, then you might want to focus just on that, whatever you're best at. But you could also take it the other way and focusing on one main message, and then 10% of your messaging or 10% of your marketing being something a little bit different or out of the ordinary or experimental that you don't know if it's going to work as well as your past marketing has worked, and that kind of thing.
This is also a good way of, for example, let's say you want to branch out into a new thing or a new aspect of the thing that you already work on, like the field that you're already in, new genre, new kind of thing. It's a good way of still showing, like, because you're only doing part of that in the new part, but you're still focusing mainly on what you're good at, what you're known for. You still show skill, as opposed to if you were to go like 80%, 70% on that thing, it will show a lot more amateurism, and it'll be like, oh, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but basically it's like you will still show like, oh, this is what we're known for, but we're expanding. It'll be less of a financial risk. It'll be less of a social risk, because you'll still show, oh, we're known for this and we do this really well. We're just branching into that other thing. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so basically what I think you're saying is if you're known for doing horror films, horror shorts, and you're good at making marketing material for that, but you want to branch out into drama or fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, you don't want to just jump into it 50%, 70% of your marketing now goes to your new stuff that you want to do. You want to branch into it very slowly with the 10% experimental. Would people even like our company? Would people even like me as a filmmaker doing this kind of work? Would they support me in that? Or do I need to find a new
because otherwise you're just starting over
market?
Yeah, otherwise you're just starting over from scratch completely in a new field or a new genre, and you have nothing to hold you, you have nothing to pull back on. You are just diving in and you're starting again with no resources. So if you're going to be looked at as, oh, a newbie, as opposed to, oh, this already established company or whatever it is, it's already established creator who's just trying something different in a different field. It's also great marketing wise as well as financial because of that, because you don't lose the skill you've already built, the audience you've already built, what you already have. It's just viewed as expanding as opposed to completely shifting gears, completely starting over in a new field.
Another thing is the same thing with that is basically you want to dip your toe into the pool without jumping straight into it. You want to see how the water is. You tip your toe in. Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it going to receive you well, or is it not going to? And then you can jump in. But doing that 10% for that kind of marketing, like if you're going into new content or new types of stuff, then slowly easing your audience into it can help you maintain and retain that audience as you get into the new expanding field you're trying or expanding content.
It also gives you time to like get the new audience from the field, the genre that you want, slowly hearing about you and interested in you. Oh, they're trying this out. I guess we'll see. As opposed to just jumping in. They're like, who are these people? You have time to build that reputation. And then the people that, for example, like you and know you for what you used to do have more time to be like, hey, that company I really like is now going into this thing that you might like, other person that I know,
Yeah.
and they can recommend it as opposed to just, oh, they're going into a completely different genre. I don't care about it. So I'm going to stop following them. No, use that base you already have and just expand, as opposed to completely losing them. If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but we see a lot of companies lose a lot of fans, lose a lot of money on stuff like this because instead of, oh, we're going to try this out, a lot of them are like, oh, this is the new popular thing. We're going to put like almost all of our investments in this next year. We're going to put all of our resources into it in this next year because it's popular and you completely shift, and the base that you already built is pretty much useless or lost now because they're like, well, not all of it. Obviously, some people, might enjoy it or be curious to see where you go, but you will alienate your audience to an extent because of that.
Yeah, and so that goes into this rule as well, as if you're trying to start some new content, trying to start a new direction with your creativity or your company or whatever it may be, then you definitely want to use this rule. And the other way of using it is any company that you see that you're going to see one type of advertising or marketing that they do the most, whether that's TV commercials or YouTube commercials before the videos or banner ads, whatever. Like they usually have the majority of their marketing in one type of marketing that they know works best, that they know they're the best at. And then they dip their toes in the other thing. And that's where this rule comes in. Basically, if a company knew that they were really good with, or if you as a creator know that you are really good with Facebook ads, and you know that every time you use Facebook ads or every time you make Facebook posts, you get a lot of your target audience interested in your stuff. So you know that your target audience is on that platform. Then you want to spend 90% of your efforts making sure that that content is as best as it can be, because that is where you excel at. And then if you think maybe you can get some more of your target audience from a platform that you've never used, maybe something like TikTok, you don't want to dive full in and put 90% of your efforts, 90% of your finances for marketing into that. You want to slowly dip in with this kind of 90-10 rule, 10% of your efforts experimenting with TikTok and see, oh, can this work on TikTok? I already know it works on Facebook, but can I also get audience members and new people from TikTok? Let me try it out and see. And that's basically what this kind of rule of thumb is. I agree that you should spend more of your effort on things you know and you like better. But for film, I don't know if 90-10 is like a really good split. Sometimes I'd say it's probably more like 65-35, because when you look at a target audience for film, they could be scattered. And so you can't just rely on one type of content or one type of marketing to get access to all of them.
There's also a lot more overlap because people like more than one genre more often than not.
Mhm. And
That's
so I
another
would
thing to
say
consider.
like 90-10, it might work, but I would say for me anyway, personally, I'd say for film specifically, it's a little bit more of an even split, not completely even, but 70-30 or 65-35, or something like that, so that you don't split all of your marketing efforts on one singular thing.
I would say it depends on what it is, in my opinion. If it's like a different genre, it depends on how well known you are for one specific genre, because it could be a very polarizing shift. Like,
Wait, let
whoa,
me pause you
I
right
didn't
there.
see that.
So yes, for long-term marketing for like a business, for your production company as a whole, I would say 90-10 definitely would work. But for short-term marketing, like just for a specific film, I would say that the efforts need to be more evenly distributed so you reach your target audience in several different ways.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like long term, if you're looking at the long term
Oh,
longevity of
wait.
your fan base as a whole for your production company and the types of projects you make.
I would just give one more thing though. Depending on marketing, for example, like if you're going to a completely new streaming, like the example you gave of like going from Facebook to TikTok, completely new social media. Um, yeah, you invest. It is a little like way less than way more than 90-10, but I still would say careful because to not do it completely even, because if you invest more in a platform where you are a complete unknown than you do in the one where you're already known, depending on what it is, depending on the what exactly you're marketing and who your audience is, you might just lose the audience you have because of attention spans and because of you know social media. Like things go and come very quickly, and fads and that kind of thing, and the nature of it. So that's another thing that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and the main thing that should be taken into consideration, especially with each individual film, is where your target audience resides. If you think the majority of your target audience resides on TikTok and you've never used it before, again, for just a film, for film marketing, for a singular film, I would say, again, that split needs to be a lot more than 90-10. Just because you don't know TikTok, if you find that the majority of your users that you want to reach use TikTok, you might just have to jump in a little bit harder than you normally would. Like Priscilla keeps
Users
saying
evolve too.
like Priscilla keeps saying with production companies, like if you like A24, that independent production company, they make kind of niche, I would say not weird, but I don't know how to word it, but I think you guys understand what I mean, like different
Alternative horror, suspense,
alternative
thriller.
style of
Yeah.
filmmaking. And they have these very like different kinds of films than you see in general AAA movie Hollywood style films that are very structured and different. If they decided they wanted to go into animation, or they wanted to make a film that's very different from what they normally do, then they would want to use this 90-10 marketing rule to try to dip their toes in it. But if you've always been known for making varied content and different things, then that doesn't really apply to you. So really, there's a lot of variations and variables to this rule, which is why it's a rule of thumb, but it is something to keep in mind if you're trying to do something new.
I would also add that, like, just as you change as a creator and your ideas, your what you want to do, people change as well. Like the people that are on that were on Facebook yesterday or probably might be on another platform tomorrow, or people that are on TikTok today might be on another platform like a month or a year from now. So studying your audience and seeing if there is that shift. How big is it? That would also really help you know how big of an investment to make when trying different things, when advertising in different places. That is also really important.
Yeah, and that actually leads into this next thing. This stuff comes from socialmediatoday.com. It is letter D in the syllabus. And another 90-10 rule in marketing is for the marketing budget. You should only spend around 10% of the budget, of the marketing budget, producing the content, creating it, making it, hiring somebody to draw the thing or to create the video, or creating it yourself and paying actors and whatever it is that's costing money. You only want to spend around 10% of the budget actually creating the content. The other 90% of the budget you want to spend on getting that content seen through advertising and marketing. So you want to create a good ad, you want to create a good image or a good video that's going to get people's attention, but you also want to make sure that people see that you have created that thing. And so you want to advertise it. You want to spend more of your budget getting it seen than you do on creating the thing. Because if we flip that around and you spend 90% of your budget creating the best marketing video out there, but then you only have 10% of your budget to try to get it out to people to see it, you're not going to have as good of a turnout as you will if you did the other way around. If you spend too much money making that video, you might not have enough money to advertise that video when it's done to actually get people to see it. So be sure to keep the majority of your marketing budget on stuff like boosting posts, buying ad space, and stuff like that, and just a small portion on actually making the marketing materials. You definitely
Now
want to
that's tricky
make
though, right?
quality
Because
content. You have to try to make quality content. And it's hard with a limited budget, especially for independent filmmakers. But if you make something, you have to get it seen in order for it to work as a marketing tool. So
I would just say that that's also tricky though, because if it's your first time, you also want to give something quality, which means your first time would probably warrant a bigger investment than, say, your third or fifth.
possibly, but you also have to think about, if this is my first time marketing and I have a film, but I'm going to spend 90% of my money on creating the marketing materials, and then I'm going to try to give it to and show it to people. And instead of 10,000 people seeing it, only 1,000 do. Now I'm not going to be able to market again because I didn't make any money. I didn't
Well,
get anybody to see
I'm
the
not
film.
talking 90-10. I just mean that when it's your first when it's your first project, or you're still building, let's say you are buying materials that you never had before, or buying or creating websites that you never had before. Like when it's the start, there is a lot more of an initial investment than if it were your fifth project, your sixth. You already have an audience. So there you could spend less on the marketing, more on the marketing, and less on the product, as opposed to if it's your first time around, you might want to spend a little more than 10% on the product, because your marketing is so new and you're going to reach an audience that doesn't know you. You want to put your best foot forward. So that is
Yeah.
kind of like a tricky.
Yeah, I agree. And it also depends on what your actual marketing budget is, because if you have $100,000 to market, 10% is $10,000. That's pretty good to make some marketing materials. But if you only have $1,000, using $100 to try to create your marketing materials, you're going to end up not getting very good quality stuff. So it also depends on the actual budget as a whole, and that's why it's a rule of thumb. It's like, this you want to basically, you just want to spend the majority of your money of the marketing budget on getting it out there for people to see. And you want to
I would
spend,
always say if you're spending more than you are in marketing, then you're doing something wrong. That's what my rule would be. Not necessarily specific percentage the first time around or the second time around. But if you find yourself spending more on the actual thing than you do marketing it out there, that might be an issue, because not even, bigger stuff, even bigger stuff, try to make sure that they don't do
Well, there's also, it's a lot of math, because you also
that.
have to
Yeah.
look at it like, if I'm spending so much money creating the content, and then, let's say if I split it 50-50, we've already looked at the other rule of thumbs that say that whatever, I forgot the percentages, but basically you have to get it out to 100 people for 1 or 10 people to take view. And
Yeah.
so if I spend half my budget creating this content, half the budget getting it out there, I'm probably not going to even make anywhere close to as much money as I spent on the actual marketing materials, much less on the whole marketing budget as a whole, which is what you want to try to definitely avoid. There's no reason to market if you're not going to make more money than what you spent marketing it in the first place.
Yeah, I'm
So
not saying I don't agree. I'm just saying that it is very tricky when you're starting out to find that balance and to make sure you feel like you're still giving a good product, but also that you're not spending, your whole or a lot of your money on it, and not marketing as much or as well as you should be.
yeah.
Like
And I would
balancing
say,
that budget.
obviously with film, this 90-10 or something similar rule doesn't apply to the entire production budget as a whole, because that wouldn't make any sense. It applies to the marketing budget as a separate budget entirely. So out of your production budget, you want to separate marketing budget. Because if you're making a film with only 10% of your overall budget, obviously it's not going to do very well. But it's still something you have to keep in mind. You want to make a quality film, and then marketing materials alone, you have to create those, which are going to cost extra money. But you have to make sure that they're getting out there for people to see, so that they are aware of your film, so they're aware of your production company or you as a creator or whatever it may be, so that they can then take notice of you and support you, so that later, like Priscilla said, it'll be easier for you to market because you already have a built-in audience. But of course, at first, and depending on the budget and all these other variables, it's going to be very different, which is one of the reasons why there's so many different marketing strategies out there, and why there's so many of these marketing rules, because they only apply in certain instances. Every single type of marketing, whatever your product is or your service is or whatever you're trying to do, you have to market it to different people. You have to market it in different ways. You have to market it with different amounts of money and different amounts of things. And there's so many variables that go into it, which is why it's, like Priscilla said, it's very tricky to figure out, and why marketing is so hard. There's multiple reasons why it's very difficult to have a successful marketing strategy. And it's because it costs a lot of money. And even if you're spending a lot of money, that doesn't mean you're reaching the right people. And if you are reaching the right people with the wrong message, then again, it doesn't matter. And if you have the right message and you're reaching the right people, but you have crappy quality marketing materials, then it might not work anyway. And so you have to have all of those things work at the same time for it to be successful in what you're trying to do with your marketing. And then you want to try to make sure that you're making more money than you're spending, so that you actually have a return on your investment. So yeah, and obviously with film, it's like we've already put so much money into the film itself. Now we have to put more money into marketing and hope that that gets people to come see it, which will get us to break even on both the marketing budget and the production budget as a whole. And that's why so many films don't make money, because it's hard to do that. It's hard to get that ratio to even out and then to start making a profit. So a lot of things to think about when marketing, but this is just one of the many things that you should take a look at and think about whenever you're trying to make marketing, is spend more money actually advertising whatever you're using as marketing material, whether that's videos, pictures, posts, if you're paying people to make your stuff, make sure that you are paying more money for them to spread the word than you are on paying them to create the content for marketing. Does anyone have anything to add? Any questions or comments about the 90-10 rule of thumb in marketing? All right, next thing we're talking about is what is called the marketing rule of 7. So it's another kind of a rule of thumb, kind of a guesstimated estimate of how many times they think somebody needs to see something before they are interested or ready to take an action on a company, especially if they never heard of it before. So this stuff comes from Elope with TKM. It's letter A in the syllabus. And the video is the marketing rule of 7. The marketing rule of 7 suggests that a prospective buyer needs to see and or hear an ad 7 times, normally from different sources, different places, before deciding to what's called convert into a customer. So basically, I need to, if it's a film I've never heard of before, if it's a company making a film I've never heard of before, I need to see that film or see that company in 7 different ways. So it might be Googling a new film's coming out and I see that one pop up. And okay, I skip by, I don't know that company, I don't know that film, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm on Facebook and there's an ad. Maybe it's a little clip of the trailer or whatever. It's a clip of the film itself. I saw it twice. Now I'm going on YouTube and an ad plays before I watch the video. And then, over the course of me being on the internet or me then going to the store and I see a billboard for it, whatever it may be, after I see it 7 times, I will be more likely to treat it legitimately and look into it more so than if I just saw it once.
Interesting that the number was 7, because for me, I think it's about 5. Like if I see it over and over again, I'm like, fine, I might look into it. But yeah, I think that the most important thing, other than just like quantity, is like diverse in different places. Because I feel like if I just see it, a YouTuber like had them as a sponsor. Oh, now it's on Instagram. Oh, now it's, an actual commercial. Oh, wow. Like I'm seeing it, like if I see it in different places, for me personally, I'm more likely to take it more seriously and see it as a legitimate thing, or even be more interested in it, as opposed to if I just saw it in one place over and over and over again.
Yeah, and with film specifically, even the bigger ones, for me anyway, whenever I see like a trailer, even if I'm interested in it, oh, cool, I'll see that when it comes out. I forget about it. I forget about it the next week. And then I see it again and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a movie I was interested in. I'm going to see it once it comes out. And then, after I see it a few more times, I look into it. Oh, when is this coming out? Because I started to see it more heavily. And so, you can imagine for an independent film, it's even more of a, oh, let me see that when it comes out. And then you forget about it. And if you don't see it again, you might forget about it entirely, even if that person was interested in seeing it, even if they were interested in the concept, the way it looked, whatever it may be. If they don't see it again, or if they only see it twice, they might forget that it's even coming out.
Especially nowadays, because we're getting so much information at once and so many different things being thrown at us again and again.
Disney's newest film that just came out that they're calling a box office bomb is that animation, Strange World. I saw an ad for it and other people were saying, and I've seen some comments and stuff, that they saw an ad for it, they saw the trailer and maybe they were interested in the film, but then they forgot it was even coming out because their marketing wasn't in everyone's faces like it should have been.
No, I told Coda, he saw an ad for it on Facebook. I hadn't seen anything. He told me about it. And I was like, oh, Disney's coming out with a new animated film. I didn't hear anything about it. And then I started receiving reviews for it last night. And I was talking to him about it, like, it already came out. I swear to you, the only ad I saw for it was like one on Facebook that you showed me, but I hadn't seen a commercial, I hadn't seen an ad, I hadn't seen anything. And you yourself only saw it once on one place.
Yeah, I had no idea it was coming out this soon.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So like, like we're used to the way that it's usually done with marketing for film is that they have some kind of announcement, they build up to the marketing for it, and then as it's getting ready to be released, you see it everywhere. And so I would say the reason why this rule is so important for film is because that's always been the way films work. With products, with new companies and services, they can sometimes market in different ways, and it might be unique enough to draw somebody's attention immediately. But since we're doing film, we're used to it being announced, 6 months in advance, whatever, and then hearing little bits and pieces of information about it up until about a month or so before, and then it's all over the place. December 7th, the movie, December 7th, the movie, and it's just everywhere because it's coming. And then if you are interested in seeing it, you've seen it everywhere, all over the place, all the time, that the exact day it's coming out and you're aware of it.
I feel like a good lesson that this experience taught us as independent filmmakers too is to not spread ourselves too thin, even in a smaller scale, because Disney's a huge freaking company, and they've got a bajillion things going on, and a lot of people are complaining that they're marketing the crap out of their bajillion sequels. Like, I saw so many ads for Disenchanted, but none for this A Strange New World movie. So even to a smaller scale, it's even more crucial that we as creators know when to advertise either one thing at a time, or if we have multiple projects, to make sure to focus on one at a time, or focus on maybe two different ones in different places. Like, be very careful to not spread ourselves too thin to where we're not advertising correctly, we're not advertising enough. People might not be as clear about us, about when our movie's coming out or what it is, or blah, 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 because we're trying so hard to do multiple things at once.
I would also say, because independent filmmakers, we're filmmakers, we're not as much marketers. Some of us are really good at it, some of us aren't. And that's why you kind of have to learn both to be successful with it. But because we're not as used to marketing, because we're not professional marketers, we need to start slowly, early, and see what's working and what's not, so that by the time our film comes out, we know how to reach our audience, and we know what's working with our marketing, we know what's not. Just like with that 90-10 rule, we know now what to pour 90% of our marketing efforts into, because we know that we're the best at creating the photos. Behind the scenes photos are working really well, so we're going to make sure we market that the most. Or the cover art itself, or the trailer, that's what's really drawing people's attention every time they're seeing it, so we're going to market with that the most. And by the time we get to our film, we know what we're going to spend most of our money, most of our efforts on doing, on marketing, because we're aware of it. If you're one of those filmmakers that waits to the last minute and you start trying to market, and like Priscilla said, you market and you spread yourself too thin because you're not really sure which platform is working the best, you're not really sure what kind of marketing might work the best. So you do a video, you do a picture, you do the cover art, and you're just posting in every single platform because you haven't done your research, then it's going to be really hard to get the same kind of number of people to see your film that you would if you had started earlier and are aware of it. Not just that, but this rule of 7 comes into play whenever you start early. Somebody who's interested in it might see it a few months in advance. And then, like I said, they might forget about it. But the next time you start marketing it again, or more heavily, they might see it again and be, oh yeah, I forgot about that. When is that coming out? And more interested, because this is the second time they're seeing it. Third, fourth, fifth. By the time they reach number 7, they might be ready to buy a ticket to go see it. That's this rule of thumb anyway. This rule of 7, that's what that means. By the time they're ready to buy a ticket, they have to see stuff about it 7 times. Some of that stuff they can look up on their own, which is another thing. But to take an action to click on it, it still generally, for this rule, requires about 7 instances where they've seen
And
it.
obviously that's an average. That's not every single person.
Right.
So
You
the
might find that
average
your target
person.
audience is very impulsive and they buy things immediately. Then you can be, you can try to market something, spend most of your efforts doing something that's going to grab attention immediately, stand out, and get your target audience to buy it, because all they need is 1 or 2 instances of seeing it before they buy. Or you might have very calculated and research heavy audience that looks into things before they buy it. They're not impulsive at all. They make sure they do their research and make sure it's something they want. And you might find that instead of 7 times, you need to reach them 15, 20 times or more just for them to actually buy a ticket to something. That is why the target audience is always the main thing to look at, and why it's important to do the research early on.
I feel like if you're an independent film, even more so, because there is either like more competition or it's not seen as quote unquote as professional or as high quality. So for you to gain more credibility, gain more attention in a field that might be a little oversaturated or a little more competitive, you would have to, perhaps that number would go up.
Yeah. And so ways we can reach people with films, especially with like independent films, the cover art. If they see the cover art somewhere, or the poster somewhere, that's one way of reaching them. The trailer, showing the trailer or a snippet from the actual film, a clip, something like that from the film, on YouTube or another video platform, some kind of other ad site that does video ads. That is another way of reaching them. A banner ad that's like at the top of a website, using something like Google Ads to go on multiple websites that match your criteria and have your banner ad up on top for people to see. You could also reach them with a suggested video if they're watching YouTube videos or on another video platform, and yours is similar to that, or you've marketed it. I mean, you've done an advertisement for it to pop up in the suggested videos for that person to watch next. That's another way for them to see it. Seeing something about the behind the scenes of the film, that whether that's a post or a photo or a story or a little clip, however you're marketing that, that's another way to reach them. A review of the film itself, if you are able to send it out to movie reviewers and independent reviewers and whatever, and you're able to get them to actually see it, leave a review. There's another way it could reach the person who is just looking through the internet for new films or independent films, or however they matched the criteria of your advertising or your marketing. They are seeing another thing based on that film. But those things have to happen, again, based on this rule. Those things have to happen 7 times before they decide to buy the ticket or rent it or download it, or however you're distributing that film. With shorter attention spans now, the elope with TKM suggests that that number might have gone up from 7 now to 23 or higher. Because like Priscilla said, we have a bunch of different things, especially for things like film, media. It's constantly new stuff coming out. So there's a lot of competition as well. So that number could be even higher than that. But it's also about attention spans being short and people not really paying attention, or not really, like I said, like I remember that I want to see it after I see it again. But if I didn't, I would forget all about that film, or I'd forget all about that TV show or whatever it may be, because our attention spans aren't very long. They're very short, and we forget things very quickly. And
it's
so,
also about how many things are constantly, because of social media, because of the internet, how many things are constantly vying for our attention at any given moment. How many things are trying to like, hey, look over here, look over there, look over here.
yeah, because you're not just competing against films, you're also competing against other advertisers and marketers for whatever. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be something else, it could be a different film. whatever it may be. It could be anything. It could be sneakers, who knows? It could be whatever. And they're just trying to reach that person because you like sneakers. And we're trying to reach them because you like film, you like independent film. And so we're vying for their attention and competing against each other. And, that's why it's so hard to get through to people, because there's so much out there that's vying for each person's attention. And again, I'm going to reiterate, that is why it's so important to know your target audience, so that when you do reach them, they're more likely to be interested in your thing than that sneaker ad, because they're more interested in this film idea than they are in whatever that sneaker thing is. Just because they wear shoes, maybe they didn't market it correctly to them.
I would go even a step further as to not just know your audience, but regularly engage with your audience. Not in like a weird parasocial kind of way, but like in a more personable kind of way, where they know what you're about, and you can either relate to them or connect to them in some way to where they would want to support you more, or to where they would understand be more passionate about your project than just someone who randomly pops up on their feed every now and
then. Yeah, that it's super important for that as well. However, with this rule, it's somebody that's not yet a follower of you. So I don't know if that applies exactly, but it can help them to see it more because they're seeing engagement on a post. So that might pop up in their feed. If
and
you're
they become
advertising
followers.
something and you're commenting on everyone who's asking a question, you're helping with the engagement of that post.
And people look at that. People look at that and they're like, hey, I want to support that. That person seems personable.
That too, yeah. But yeah, and like Priscilla said earlier, this rule is why it's important to have multiple avenues and strategies of marketing. They're called touches. They call it touching. You're basically touching the person. Basically, like, think of it like somebody's paying attention to the computer screen. You're coming up behind them and you're patting them on the shoulder. Hey, touch, touch, touch. You do that multiple times, eventually they're going to turn around no matter how focused they are on whatever they're looking at. And so with advertising, with marketing, we're trying to touch them over and over and over again until they finally pay attention to us and look at what we're trying to say, which is whatever we're marketing. And for us, that's our film. And that way they go, what is it? Oh, it's a film. Let me check it out. So if you just try to market through one avenue, like Priscilla said, if you're just trying to do it through Facebook, if they don't get on Facebook all the time, they're not going to see it 7 times. They're not going to see it over and over again, and they're going to forget about it, which is why it's important to vary your content and why it's important to do a mix of different strategies for marketing when you're doing a film. And then using that 90-10 marketing rule to focus most of your efforts on the thing you're best at, but still making sure that you have the other avenues there as well. So basically,
the poking analogy made me laugh.
What?
No, the poking analogy just made me think of like a little kid or something. Hey.
Hold on. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
like I'd be annoyed at that point.
I wanted to make sure that it didn't get taken another way.
Oh yeah, because I was about to make a joke about that too. Like, I don't know if touching is the best way.
Yeah, well, it's touches, but yeah, like that's what I thought.
It's like, I don't know if that's the best word to use.
Each time they see it, it's called a touch. So it's touches. But yeah. So someone sees an ad on Facebook. Then the next day they see a clip for the movie play before their YouTube video. Then a few days later, they see the behind the scenes for the movie pop up and they're suggested. Maybe they see a bench, a billboard, or a bus with the key art, the poster on it. Then maybe they hear a podcast or they're listening to the radio and they're hearing someone mentioning it before they decide to finally buy that ticket. And like I said earlier, maybe they were meaning to this whole time, ever since they heard about it, and they just kept forgetting. But as they keep hearing about it, as they keep seeing more things about it, they're more likely to buy that ticket. And if they're not sure if they want to, if they're like, oh, that film, it's an independent film. I mean, it sounds cool, but it's independent. I don't know. Then if they see it again, they're more likely to look into it a little bit more. Even if they don't that time, the next time they see it, more likely that they're going to be like, oh, okay, this is seeming a little bit more legitimate. It seems like they're able to market it like this. I'm seeing it all over the place. And so people take that more seriously because it seems more legitimate. It seems to have a higher budget than it does, which is why independent filmmaking marketing it's so important to be efficient with it, and so important to know your target audience so that you can reach those people over and over again, because it'll make them feel like basically like you have more of a marketing budget than you do, because they're seeing it over and over and over again. And if it's something that they're sort of interested in but unsure of, the more they see it, the more likely they'll be more interested in it or give it a higher chance than they would if they just see it once or twice. Whatever the case, them hearing and seeing it over and over again is what finally actually gets them to buy that ticket. It's also why it's important to advertising on the same platforms, making varied content, posts that people can see and that they might see over and over again, or daily, or every few days. And by the 7th or more time they see it, they're more likely to buy in. And it's why it's important to have different varied content on the same platform as well. If you do like Facebook, if you do have most of your target audience on Facebook, you don't just want to keep posting the same exact post over and over again. We've gone over this, but it's why you want to have varied content, some that's informational, some that is educational, and some that's promotional, and do a marketing mix within that platform. That way they're seeing a different post about the same thing. The main thing is the movie, but they're seeing a new thing about it and a different thing. Now they're seeing behind the scenes of it, and now they're seeing a featurette commentary on it. Now they're seeing that it was on a podcast and whatever. They're not just seeing you post, there's a movie coming out, and then the next day there's a movie coming out. Instead, they're saying, there's a movie coming out. Here's the trailer for the movie. Here's a scene from the movie. Here's behind the scenes of how we did something in the movie, whatever. They're seeing varied content on it, which makes them more engaged and more interested in it.
And it feels less like spam. It feels more like you're giving them different things as opposed to just constantly spamming them with the same ad over and over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. Because if they just keep seeing the same thing, it just feels like, okay, I get it. But if they're seeing very different stuff on it, it's just more engaging. It's better for you as a marketer. This stuff comes from marketingillumination.com. It's letter D in the syllabus. It's also why it's important to know your target audience. So if they have to see stuff about it 7 times to decide to get a ticket, imagine how many times someone not in your target audience would have to see it to be made aware of it before deciding to actually buy a ticket or to go see it or download it. If you have your reach, the person that likes that thing 7 times, person that doesn't really care about it, you'd have to, to convince them to buy a ticket for it when they're not even like, how do I say this? If they don't like sci-fi movies, but you made a sci-fi movie and you're not targeting the right audience, you're not targeting the people who like sci-fi movies and the right age range and whatever, it's going to be really hard to get that person to just go, okay, fine, I'll go watch this independent sci-fi movie that I've never heard of. Instead of getting somebody that loves sci-fi content and doesn't care as much about the budget, doesn't care as much about who made it, they just like seeing different concepts within the sci-fi realm. So the marketing mix is important. Having different strategies of how to reach them through different forms of marketing and by using the different marketing materials and knowing the target audience to make sure you're targeting the right people. This is also why it's important to stay consistent with your message and consistent with posting, updating, and more, because they need to see it over and over again. And you don't want to make your message about this movie being a sci-fi family movie if you're going to change your message halfway through your marketing and say it's an action-packed sci-fi movie, because those are sort of two different things. So you want to make sure your messaging of what this is for a film, what's the main theme of the movie, what's the main message, and make sure that you're reaching them with that same message over and over and over again so that they eventually buy that ticket or download it. And it's also why it's important to maintain brand identity, username handles. They're having the same username across multiple different platforms so they know that it's your company or you as a creator, and all of that kind of thing, so that it's clear it is you. Because if your film's a sci-fi movie, there could be another sci-fi movie that's coming out at the same time, and you want to make sure that you stand apart from them. And if your movies are similar, the way you stand apart is your brand identity, the color scheme you use, the name of your company, whatever it may be. Those are what's going to set you apart a little bit and what makes them know which one's which. So you want to make sure that you keep and maintain that brand identity across different platforms, across your website and social media and wherever you're trying to advertise or market. Also, because of this rule of 7, it is important to allow yourself and your audience enough time to market the film or your company. Like I said earlier, if you start marketing for a film that releases in a few days, you're going to have a very bad turnout because it's going to be hard for you to reach their attention 7 times or more before the movie comes out. Give yourself time, grow your audience in advance, and start marketing months before release. Also, be sure to follow up with engaged customers like Priscilla's at. Any questions they have, be sure to answer and comment, like, heart, favorite, or react to comments and posts that have to do with your material, your content, or your marketing, your film, whatever they're commenting on. Be sure to engage back with them as well. And like I said, vary your content with images, videos, testimonials, reviews, video or otherwise, blog posts, emails, email marketing, posts, checklists, quizzes, competitions, sweepstakes, challenges, informational, educational, and promotional content, polls, and more. There's a ton of different ways you can market a product or a film. So be sure to vary it, and that'll be the easiest way for them to see it 7 different times, different platforms and different ways of marketing. If you guys remember, we talked about this thing, it's called AIDA, AIDA. It's awareness, interest, desire, and action. In order for your most potential customers to go through that funnel, they need to see stuff about it multiple times. So first, you make them aware that you have a film in the first place. That's the awareness. So instead of this, I want to see some cool pants, it's, I want to see a film. Then they have to get interested in it a bit before hearing more about it. Oh, what kind of film is this? This looks interesting. I'm interested in seeing it, possibly. Then they desire to see it, but either keep forgetting to buy a ticket or are wondering if they should or not. If it's that sci-fi film, they're interested in sci-fi films. Their desire is to watch a sci-fi film, but they're not sure if yours is the one they want to watch because it's an independent film. So maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't. It sounds cool, but I don't know if I like independent films enough to give it a chance. Or maybe they're like, oh, I do want to buy a ticket to this. I do want to see it, but they keep forgetting about it because there's other things on their mind. They have a busy life. There's other marketing going on that they're looking at. And so they keep going, oh crap, I meant to buy a ticket to that. I meant to buy a ticket to that. And the more they keep meaning to buy a ticket to that and seeing it again, means the more likely they're going to eventually do this last part, the action, which is buying that ticket. You have to keep it up to get that conversion. Once they finally get that desire to do it, it might take another step before they take the action of buying it or renting it online or whatever that action is. So you have to keep it up. You have to make sure that your marketing is there and it's continuing over. Yeah.
Is the internet working for you? My connection is,
Yeah, the internet's working.
sorry. Just I'm in the meeting and I can't hear anything.
Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
I don't know, honey.
Probably just mine then. Sorry.
You're good.
Didn't mean to cut this off.
But yeah, so AI, they have to be aware that you have a film in the first place. They have to be interested in your kind of film. They have to desire to see it. And then they have to take the action of buying a ticket, renting it, or going to actually see it. This on top of the other marketing rules of thumb we've seen, it's no wonder why marketing is so hard sometimes, because that's why you need a budget for it. That's why independent films fail a lot of the times, because they do not budget for marketing. They kind of sometimes ignore it until the last minute. And then they don't even have a budget for it. They don't have a plan for it. And it's never going to work out well if you do that way. You can't rely on, I'm going to get into a festival and then it's just everyone's going to know about it. Not everybody knows about festivals or films that are in the festival that year or that week or even that day. Even if it's doing really well, it's getting promoted sort of through free reviews and whatever else from people talking about it and praising the film. That doesn't mean that it's going to reach everybody you're trying to reach for your target audience. Even if you get distributed, that doesn't mean your distributor is going to be able to take over and completely successfully market to your target audience the way you might be able to help if you had planned for it and budgeted for it before you even got to that point. So you always want to take it into account, marketing. How am I going to get this to people? How am I going to get this to people that want to see it? And of course, like we talked about, before you even make the film, before you write it, a big part of it is anybody going to be interested in this? Is anybody going to want to see this film when it's done? Because if you find that no, I don't see that there's any evidence that anybody's going to watch this, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work, but it does mean it's going to be a lot harder for you to reach the people because you're not sure who it's supposed to reach. You're not sure who would even be interested in it. So you have to do a lot more work to try to and spend a lot more money to reach the right people when you come out with it. And that's why, like we talked about earlier in previous semesters, it's why it's hard for independent films to get made when they are not like other films. If yours is completely different, it's a completely new concept, it's not similar to anything, then most likely there's a reason that it's not, and that's because nobody is interested in watching it. Nobody's interested in that kind of thing. Like I said, it doesn't mean it's always the case, but it's just something you have to be aware of. And it just means if you find that your film is like that and you're absolutely set on making it, and you're like, I'm going to make it anyway, I don't care, just be aware that it's going to be multiple times harder to market it to people than it would be if you have found a target audience, if you have previous evidence that there's an audience for this film, an audience for that project.
I would even say, like, don't worry too much about like being afraid, but because sometimes it's just a matter of timing. It doesn't mean your movie is scrapped completely. It doesn't mean that it's but I have to release it now. Otherwise, sometimes it's just waiting a few months, or if you have the luxury, a year or two. I know not everyone does. So, but like sometimes it's just a matter of waiting until it's a more a better moment. For example, like there were a lot of, let's say, if a movie, I've seen a lot of movies that had to pause release because of COVID or because of for whatever reason, for multiple reasons. That doesn't mean that the movie's completely scrapped. It just means like, oh, we're gonna wait a little bit and market it when it's a more um, profitable time, when it's more likely that we're gonna get a better audience or a market that actually wants
Yeah, but
it. But
again,
not
there has
everyone
to
can afford
be
that.
like the research to find that there is a market for that film before the
Yeah,
film
that
is
is
made.
definitely true.
Okay, that's what I was talking about. If
No,
you
I
find
know,
that
but I'm just
if you
saying,
don't
like,
find an audience for it, if you don't find evidence that there could be an audience for it before you write it, you can still make it. It's just going to be multiple times harder to get funding, multiple
oh,
times harder to get
I know how to explain it better. Sorry,
marketing.
I didn't explain it right. What I mean is, see if there has been in history a market for that, because sometimes it is a matter of time. That's what I mean. Like, I don't mean like, oh, you make it, spend your money on it, and then just wait until the perfect time. I just mean like, if there was a market for it, these things are in cycles too. So that's one thing to consider when thinking about like, is it marketable, but also like, am I willing to wait until it comes back into popularity?
I would say if that's the case, you don't
And
really
how
have to
am I going?
wait until it's popular, but it will be harder to get funding and it will be harder to market it
Yeah.
in this day and age if that's not as common anymore. Because, something like Blair Witch Project, which did found footage, was very rarely done. And it wasn't really done with like bigger budgeted feature films. I don't think ever. Maybe, before, but it wasn't popular enough to be well known. That's the first one that's popular enough that we all know what it is from me just saying it. So it doesn't mean it can't work, like I keep saying, but it means it was very harder to get done and it's very less likely to be successful just because it's harder to get funding for it. It's harder to draw audiences' attention to it. And it's harder to know who will like this film because there's not a built-in audience for it yet. So if you have a project that's kind of different from everything, just something to be aware of is that it's going to be harder to make overall. And it's probably going to cost more to market it so that you try to find who likes this film and who doesn't. Most of the time, you're going to find that you can find some kind of similar film or some kind of similar idea that has a built-in audience. And you're going to be able to know what your target audience is if you do the research for it and successfully find the correct target audience for your film. And that'll exponentially make it easier for you to get funding and for you to market it because you already know who you're going after. You already know what eyeballs you're trying to get to see this thing when you're done. And you already know who might be interested in it with evidence based on the previous things they've liked and seen in the past. So that's what I was meaning with that, is like it's target audience. That's why I keep reiterating why it's so important, is because it exponentially helps in individuals, huge companies, small companies, huge films, small films. If you know who you're trying to reach, if you know your target audience and who would be interested in it or who most likely would be interested in it, you'll have a more successful time when you get to that point than if you have no clue. Does anybody have anything to add? Any questions or comments about the rule of 7 or AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, action?
So funny, man.
Yeah, AI, that's weird.
Yeah.
All right, last thing we're talking about, it's another rule of marketing. This one is called the 4 P's of marketing, otherwise known as the marketing mix. And it's a little bit more, I would say it's more of like a starter thing. We've kind of already gone in detail over each of these in different ways, but I'll just explain it so that if you ever hear about it, or if you have an investor or somebody who's asking you what your marketing mix is, you can know what information they're
Like you
asking.
don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Investopedia.com. This is where the stuff's coming from. Is letter C in the syllabus underneath 4 P's of marketing. 4 P's are the key considerations that must be thoughtfully considered and wisely implemented in order to successfully market a product or a service. The 4 P's stand for product, price, place, and promotion, and are all part of what is referred to as the marketing mix. For film, the film is the product. Who is it for? What makes it different from others like it? That's the product. What's the title? That could be the brand name. The packaging, that's like the key art, the trailer, stuff like that. That's the product. Marketers need to define the product and introduce its qualities, which is the things that makes it unique to audiences and consumers. So the main thing with trailers is we're trying to show what sets it apart. What is its concept? What's the character like? What's this world like that we're building and gonna watch? And that is how you market the product side of this thing. Price, clearly, it's pretty obvious. It's the amount consumers are willing to spend to see it or to buy it. For a film, clearly it's to buy the ticket or to rent it or whatever. It's the price they're willing to spend. And sometimes with film, price is kind of interesting because sometimes when it's free, it actually gets less interest than if it costs money, because sometimes it's viewed as lesser than because it's free. It just depends on your target audience. Target audience might look at things that are free and think that they're worth less because they're free. And that might make you want to try to market to them the rentable version of your film that is $3 or whatever. That way they're more likely to pay that price to see it than watching a free movie to get that advertising revenue. If you're going to theaters, they're gonna, like the theater chain is going to charge their average ticket cost. Normally that's how it works. However, if you're going to individual theaters, you're doing it separately, then I think you can negotiate your price, or you can set it depending on how you are making the deal with the theater. If you're four-walling it, which means you're just renting out the theater space, you get to set the price for your tickets and you get to decide how much it costs to come see it. If you are making an agreement with the theater, then it'll be up to that agreement to who decides the pricing and how that pricing gets split, how the revenues are split. However, if you are self-distributing, pricing too low is just going to get you less total revenue. Pricing too high will stop some from buying tickets. So it's another hassle you have to think about to figure out what will people pay to see an independent film if they're interested in seeing it in the first place. Because if you're charging $100 a ticket, unless you have an amazing marketing and amazing feature film and you've totally marketed to the completely correct core audience, your target audience, and they're willing to pay that price just to see this film or help promote you or support you, charging $100 a ticket, you're probably not going to get anybody to come see it because that's just too much. We're not used to movies charging that much, even AAA quality movies. So we're not going to normally spend that much, and it's going to turn a lot of people away. But if you're charging $1 for a ticket, then you're probably making less money than you're spending on renting out the theater space. Or you're probably not going to make your budget back, even if you're seating the entire theater over and over again multiple times, because you're making such a small amount with each ticket. And that is why it's important to think about price and what to set it at. You can get an idea for pricing by checking local theater ticket prices, what the average is around your area, and seeing how much other self-distributor indie films are charging. because some charge 20, 25 bucks and they work out well because they marketed to the right people. And sometimes that doesn't. So you have to just kind of see what's working, what's not, and how much are people charging around me, and are they making money or are they not successful with it? Just because you see somebody else charging $100, if they only have 5 people see the film, then you need to be aware of that so that you don't just think, oh, well, they can do it, I can too. Because they did it, that doesn't mean it's working. So be sure to check out if it's working or not too. And that is all price. Third P, place. That's where the film will be available and how it will be made available, which is like home video, DVDs and Blu-rays, advertising-based video on demand. That's that free to watch, and you're going to get paid by them seeing the ads that play throughout the film. Transactional video on demand, that's renting or buying the film straight out from a direct-to-video platform. Subscription-based video on demand, Netflix, those kinds of things, if you're able to get it on there. Theaters, if you're going to go to theaters, that's the place it's available. And which theater it's at each time is also about the place. If you're going to take it slow and go city to city, clearly you're only going to be in one city at the time. And you want to make sure that you are marketing that place is where it is located, where you can come see the film. And that is in this city. And next week, it's going to be in this city. But if you're trying to do it nationally all at the same time, then where are you distributing it and how is your place? Place is also where you promote from and where you advertise on. Online, social media, newspapers, magazines, websites, bus stops, and more. Places where you're marketing and where your product, which is your film, is available. Last one is promotion. Promotion is the communication to the target audience of why they need to see the film. It's how you promote it with videos, images, text, newsletter updates, viral marketing techniques, and more. They also say, Investopedia.com, they also say more modern. There are now 3 additional Ps for a total of 7 Ps of marketing. So instead of it just being product, place, price, and promotion, it's product, place, promotion, price, people, process, and physical evidence. People are the faces of the campaign. It can be, for a film, it can be an iconic character, like the Joker. When the Joker came out, he was the face of the film, that iconic character. Or it could be the social media influencers you have that promote it. They might not be on the poster, but they might be the face of the film. When people think about the film, if they're following that social influencer, they think about them because that's how they heard about it. That's the main way you're marketing it. So those people are the faces of your film. The way, their characters, what their personalities are online will have an effect on how people view how your film is going to be. And so that's why you also want to be careful with who you are getting to influence the people, who you're hiring or who you're getting to promote the film. Because if it's somebody that people find, silly and funny, and then your film isn't a comedy, they might prejudge it as being comedic. And then when they see it, they're upset because they were expecting it to be a comedy because this comedy influencer was talking about it. So does that make sense?
Or sometimes it's even, I've seen them try to promote it to people that are really into movies and shows, but mostly it's like more of superhero films or fantasy films. And then you have like a historical drama. And that person, they might like that genre, of course, but their audience probably was used to more of the other films that they're going to and promoting and stuff. So it might be a little bit of a shock to them, like, oh, I'm not really interested in that kind of
Or
film.
for a specific movie reviewer type of influencer you're trying to get, if they talk about some films and I'm watching them and I agree with what they say about action films, but I don't agree with what they say about drama. And because, they like specific kinds of things that I don't really like when it comes to drama, but with action, I totally agree with all their points. If you're marketing through them and yours is a drama, then I might automatically think that I don't like that film just because I don't agree with this influencer's point of view on most drama films.
Yeah, but
And
in that
so,
case, it's not really much you can control as the marketer on that instance because that's a very personal thing.
yes, but it is something that you can consider and think about because of you can do your research on people and
Yeah.
see if their commentary on certain films that are like yours or in the same genre of yours match what you feel about your own film and what you think your target audience will feel. Because the whole point of
Oh, yeah, that makes
this is trying to make sure that you know who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to get inside their head. You're trying to figure out what is my target audience going to think and who do they like, where do they spend time. So if you're doing all that, you're trying to think, would they agree with this person and would they like what they have to say? The things that they say about drama, they usually like it when there's a bunch of crying scenes. My film doesn't have a lot of crying scenes. It's more like, I don't know, it's different kind of drama, whatever. So you would want to be like careful just because they talk about films, just because they talk about drama doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to perfectly align with yours. And there's 7 parts to this whole thing. So that's just one of them. And that doesn't mean it's going to ruin your whole movie or make people think that that's a certain film when they just because they've heard it through some person. But it is one thing to consider is that they are then the face of your film and to that audience. They're the face of the film to the influenced people that are watching them. And so they're just automatically going to align their ideals with the film. And like I said, if it's a comedic influencer that usually likes comedies and they talk about films all the time, even if the person is aware that your film isn't a comedy, they might just automatically assume that it has some comedy in it or whatever. And that might draw them away from it. It might draw them into it and make them not like it because they were expecting something different. And that's why that's a piece that you need to consider of who you are getting to talk about your film. We see a lot of clothing and shoe brands that use a celebrity as the face of their marketing campaign. Shoe brands and athletic wear, they usually get some kind of basketball player or football player to represent them so that you can be like, hey, Michael Jordan wears that, I'm going to do it. Or, hey, I don't know anybody, but
I was gonna say you don't know any sports people.
I know their names. I just forgot them right now, but you guys know what I mean. There's actually Kanye just got dropped by Adidas, and he's not even a person who plays sports, but they had to be careful with that because of the things he's saying. He was their face of their product at that point.
Well,
So
it's
if
because of
they kept
Yeezy.
him on,
Mostly, he
if they
has a brand
kept
of
him
sneakers.
on, it would be bad for their brand. And that's where this people aspect comes in. It's he is then the face of their brand. If they like what he's saying, then they're going to keep him on. If they don't like what he's saying, they're going to drop him like they did. And a lot of companies do that. And so when you're a film, you just got to be careful. Your person or your face, it could be the actor, the main actor in the film. And that is why usually these contracts, like we talked about in earlier semesters, have some kind of clause that
Morality
says that you
clauses.
can drop them if they start acting crazy or if they start, if they've murdered somebody or if they start beating people up in the grocery store, because that looks bad on your film and it's going to be negative for your marketing and for your revenue.
Somebody, you don't even need to worry about firing them because they're probably going to go to jail.
Yeah, right. But I mean, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
If they go to jail and your film's finished, you could still push it out. It would just
Oh
be
my, that would be horrible.
exactly. It would be a very bad thing. So you want to be careful with who you're setting as the face of your campaign, because even if you don't have, uh, even if you're not using an actor's face for it, the people you're getting to talk about the film, you have to be careful, because they at any point could do something negative or something against what you're trying to do, and that could look negatively on your film.
Yeah.
For film, you might also use a personification of one of the characters to help promote it. We've talked about that. People make a Facebook or a social media account of some kind to act as one of the characters and talk like they do. Anchorman used this strategy. They made Ron Burgundy talk about actual politics that were happening in our real world in his own way of how his character would, to help promote it. And so that character was then the face of the marketing campaign. Or you might just have real people promote it. Each can work or not, and not every campaign requires a face for the campaign, but it can help, especially if you're choosing it carefully and correctly. The next P, process, that is the logistics. If the film is available immediately through video on demand, or it's only available at theaters at first. For film, it's kind of similar to place, where you're placing it. But I guess if we're separating this, I would say place would be where it's available, and process would be how it's available. Process is theater distribution, where place is which theaters is it playing at, which cities is it playing at, and when. And so that's the way to split that in half. Then you have physical evidence for the last P, if you're doing these 7 Ps of marketing. Physical evidence is stuff like the key art, the trailer, the summary description. It's the evidence that shows you are capable of providing a quality time of entertainment. If the key art looks professional, the trailer looks good, and the summary is well done, it will seem more likely that the film is a higher quality than other independent films. And so the physical evidence is, does this look like it's going to be a good time? You could have the best film ever, but if you do a crappy key art, if your trailer is messy, it doesn't really give the right message across, and it's not edited well, and the summary you chose, you didn't really explain it well, you have like a really generic sounding film, then you're going to get less people to see it, because they're not going to see the physical evidence that this is going to be a quality product, that this is a good put together thing. They're going to think it looks and sounds like crap, because you haven't spent the right amount of time on creating quality marketing materials that makes it appear that it's going to be a good movie. These P's of marketing, or the marketing mix, is the combination you need in order to market well. We've gone, like I said, we've gone over these things pretty much all individually over time, over this semester. And it basically just boils down to, again, it boils down to knowing your target audience, where they hang out online, or where they hang out, where they're located in the world, what they like, what kind of marketing that would work on them, and then utilizing that information to market to them in several different ways that will grab their attention, garner interest, and make them consider buying the tickets to see the film. All boils down to knowing your target audience, making those assumptions based on evidence of what they like, how they like it, where they like to be, and marketing it specifically for them, branching out from there, but finding that target audience first. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add on the marketing mix? 4 P's of marketing, now 7 P's of marketing. All right, that was everything for tonight. For Thursday, we will be going over the exercises. So that's the script analysis exercise, website creation exercise, pitch deck exercise, social media page and profile creation exercise. If you guys are interested in taking part in that, be sure to have them ready by Thursday night. So that's when we'll be going over it. Other than that, we only have a few weeks left in the semester. We have 2 weeks after Thursday, and we'll be going over this semester like we normally do. And we'll also be kind of going over the entire course as a whole for the last,
we'll be rid of
as
us
well as
forever.
talking
No, I'm
about what's
kidding.
going to happen in the what our future plans are and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a really good time, and we're not done yet. I just wanted to mention that it is getting close. So
Yeah, make that very clear, because
otherwise what?
no, you know, it's like, oh, we're done. Okay.
Yeah, we're not done yet, but we're getting close. And it's been really nice having all of you guys on board with this, and experiencing and learning all of this with you guys has been really fun and interesting to hear different points of view on all the information we're talking about. So
No, definitely.
we'll talk more about this later
from you
on,
guys,
but
too.
I just wanted to mention it because we're getting closer to the end.
Yeah, we'll have a mushy fest soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Mushy Fest will be like the last week. Until then, we're gonna be talking about like just overviewing a bunch of stuff that we've gone over throughout the semester and semesters as a whole. Anyway, I hope you all have a good night. Have a good week. Remember to do your exercises if you're gonna be.
Hopefully you're feeling
participating on
better,
Thursday.
Brian, because that cough.
That was Vish.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, well, hopefully you're feeling better, Vish.
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of recovering.
I'm gonna stop recording real quick.
Everyone's been getting sick lately. Jeez.